But I started to notice during the Black Lives Matter rallies that people on social media, there's all these terms that were popping up, and it was almost like everybody was speaking the same language from the same script, and it just started to be this weird alternate reality. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? It's like white fragility, all these different terms that everyone seemed to be on the same page on, except for me. It's like, where did everyone learn this?
And
like,
you don't even
how
know
to be
exactly
an anti-racist,
what it means, right?
Yeah. It all sounds really good. It's like, check your white privilege. All of it seems, it's just this strange new world that we're living in. And I started to kind of delve into it a little bit and discovered that there's this whole area of philosophical thought that it all comes from, and it's taken over the universities. It's called critical theory. I found some great people like James Lindsay, who's been researching this for a decade or so and has read all the literature, and I have not done that. But I realized that there wasn't much on the right that was actually explaining these terms for the average person, because I think most people hear this stuff and they're like, that sounds great. I'm an anti-race. I'm against racism. Like, I'll be an anti-racist. Or like, you put yourself in these different categories, but people don't actually know that there's an agenda behind all of these different terms. So what we're trying to do with Cult of Wokeness is to really show what the agenda is and what you're buying into when you call yourself an anti-racist or something along those lines. And that comes from critical theory. But does that mean you're against racism? No, it actually explicitly does not mean that. It means that you are against, you're for systems that level out racial disparities and racial outcomes. So that means you're for for equality of outcome, which is an entirely different thing than equality of opportunity. It basically means there has to be some sort of state control or social control that manipulates those outcomes and creates those outcomes. So we created a whole bunch of different videos. I think the first one is essentially defining some of these terms, defining what the term racism itself changed into.
Yeah, there's a lot of language changing going on where terms that we all think we understand, like racism, don't mean the same thing anymore in certain circles. And so we're having a really hard time communicating with each other because people use the same words, but they have very different meanings in their minds when they say them.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was, but a few years ago now, I quoted Martin Luther King when I was on CNN, and I said, judge people based on the content of the character, not the color of their skin.
Yeah.
And Don Lemon corrected me, because he thought that was wrong somehow. And I didn't realize that this intersectionality thing was a thing, which is explicitly racist because everyone is judged based on the color of their skin or their sexual orientation.
Right.
And I'm like, how did that happen? And that's what you're digging into.
That's what we're digging into. And our one of our recent ones was how critical theory is racist, which is a not at all controversial title. But it explicitly is.
Where do you live? Do you want to tell people?
I won't tell anyone. I'm moving.
Just keep telling them Marin County. It'll be fine.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's once you dig into it, you realize that it's explicitly racist.
Yeah.
And Ibram Kendi even says discrimination is good as long as you're discriminating in the right direction.